I think we just start natural.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hello, hi. So today with me, brother Amir.
Mm-hmm.
So hi, how are you doing, brother Amir?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you, Hama?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I
And
would
thank you
like
for having
actually,
me.
yeah, most definitely. So I would like to start like to know a little bit about your background. So if you can share a little bit, like where are you from, uh, like any interesting story from the time you grow up, like where did you grow, what type of,
Okay.
let's say, student you were in school. So if you were my classmate, what type of a classmate you would be. So yeah,
Okay.
just let us know.
Okay. So I'm actually from Singapore. And also, let me see. I grew up with a humble background. I think both my parents are middle class. Both are working parents, and I think I'm being brought up perfectly fine. Um, Along the way, I actually in my first diploma that I took, it was actually engineering, networking, and programming. I took that particular diploma was because my brother actually took it first, and then he told me that oh, it's actually quite interesting. And then when I took a look at his final year project, it involves a bit of robotics. So to me, I find that interesting. But of course, by the time I graduate and after my NS, it was just after the whole Lehman Brothers issue and also the economic crisis.
Mm.
So jobs were horrible. The job market was horrible.
Yeah. I
And so,
graduated around that time, so I
okay.
also remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remembered I actually sent out over 100 resumes. Only one responded. The one who responded offered me a salary of 900 Singapore dollars.
Wow.
So to me, I feel like I thought I'm decently educated. I have a diploma. I thought I should kind of earn more, but that was how bad the market was.
Mm.
So I end up working in logistics for a year. In that
Sorry,
company,
where did you work?
logistics.
Logistics. Okay.
Yes. So nothing to do with my field. I end up working in under the aviation side for logistics. Um, and that was where I kind of realized that actually um, the working life is boring. I thought that the working life would be interesting, but it feels like a dead end job. I went to work, I clock in to work, and then for 8 hours, I'm just sitting in front of the computer, not doing anything much. And by the time my shift was about to end, I do a 5 minutes report on what I kind of do the whole day. And yeah, that was pretty much my life. But
Mm.
interestingly, because I was very free at that job, I decided to pick up reading.
Mm.
So before that,
Sorry.
never before in my life, I
Mm.
actually read a book before. But that was where I decided, like, hey, since I have nothing to do, and back then there was no social media and all, maybe I should start reading a book, right?
Mm.
So I went to the bookstore and then I bought my very first book. The very first book that I bought was it's called How to Build a $1 Million Business.
Mm.
It's by
Okay.
a local author called Adam Khoo, and that was where I start to um, see this whole new side of the world.
Mm.
Running a business, how to build a business. So I find that hey, actually, there's more to life. But at that point of time, I still haven't really figured out what I want to do. And because I was a medic when I was in NS, I thought like, okay, if all jobs was a dead end job, maybe I should consider working in the nursing industry. Why nursing industry is because even though the salary doesn't really make sense or to a lot of people it's actually quite low,
Mm.
uh, at least I'm doing something meaningful, right?
Mm.
So that was the reason why I eventually start to consider and eventually take up nursing. Yeah, and
Okay.
then I went back to school 3 years. I completed my nursing diploma, and then up till today, I'm a registered nurse. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I always wondered, like, why would anyone become a nurse? Because
Mhm,
like my observation, it is very tough job. Like it's really demanding. I think physically demanding, even I think emotionally demanding, and the pay maybe it's not really equal to the effort you put.
mhm,
So
yeah.
can you just give me a little bit understanding why would you went there? Is it like the satisfaction from helping people, or what was it for you?
Okay, so one of the main factor why I actually joined nursing was, like I mentioned earlier, I was actually a medic during my national service.
Mm,
One experience that really made me uh, like really it's still close to my heart is there was this time I was doing, if I'm not mistaken, it's a weekend shift in the medical center.
mm,
And then what happened was some of the units they were having a very strenuous training. I can't name which unit is it, but this unit is well known for having very rigorous training. What happened was that they were having they call it a fast route march, where they have to complete 12 kilometers of route march within a specific timing. Um, just after they ended the route march, one of them actually collapsed, and then they immediately stretchered the guy to the medical center. So us medics immediately attend to the code, and then we put him in the body cooling unit because the reason why he collapsed was because of hypothermia.
mm.
And that was when we immediately gave treatment. We gave treatment, we gave the IVs, we put him in the body cooling unit to bring down the temperature before we evacuated him to the hospital.
Hyperthermia,
So
is it when your temperature go high, or is it when go down,
when it's very high,
or is it very high? Okay.
yes. So I still remember his temperature was at 42 degrees at that point of time,
Wow.
42 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so he had hypothermia. After we managed to bring it down a little further, we evacuated him to the hospital. So the thing that really touched me was there was like it was a couple of weeks after that.
Mm,
He came to me at the medical center, and then he told me that, hey, I don't know you, I don't know your name, but I can roughly remember your face during the time when I was actually not myself. So I think the reason why he could remember my face was because I was standing right in front of him while he was in the body cooling unit, and when he sit up straight, I think that was when he actually saw my face. So he told me that thank you for saving my life.
mm.
So that was the thing that really touched me and made me realize that, hey, actually the medical industry, it's something to actually consider, because that feeling, that satisfaction when somebody tell you thank you for saving my life, yeah, you can't get it anywhere. So that was the main reason why I eventually joined nursing. Mm.
Okay. How does this body cooling unit look like? Like, how does it function? Like, is it like a tub, or it's like what?
It's there are sprinklers above and below, and then we put them through
Mm.
like a stretcher. We roll them in, and then from the top and from the bottom there will be uh, water coming out, shooting on the person. Yeah, so that is
Okay.
um,
So something like this,
yes, correct, something like that.
like this one.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
something
Okay.
similar to
So the purpose for this is to cool down the body, cool down the body temperature.
that. Yes, I mean, it looks something like that, but I'm not too sure if that is really the one. Yeah, but it looks as that
Mm.
it looks kind of like that.
Okay.
Top and bottom, there will be sprinklers to spray water on them. Mm,
I see. I see.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. So that moment, like when you managed to save that person' life and help, you managed to help him, it was like a turning point for you. So later on in your life, you decided, I think nursing is the answer
Yes.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool. And you mentioned earlier you are from Singapore,
Yes.
right? So you born in
Yeah.
Singapore. So I've lived in Singapore. So originally I'm not from this region of the world.
Mhm.
I came actually to Malaysia in 2005,
Okay. Where are you from, Omar?
and then I'm originally from Syria.
Ah, I see. Okay. You still have family
Yeah,
there?
yeah. So
You still
sorry.
have families there?
Most of my family left Syria,
Okay.
but they going back. Some of my family members going back soon to Syria actually
Okay. Okay.
soon. Yeah. Yeah, so I came to Malaysia. I lived in Malaysia for many years of my life. I did live in Singapore for some time before COVID and after COVID. But I think everybody can, like, let's say I look at Malaysia or I look at Singapore from, let's say, an expatriate
Yeah.
perspective. And I know in this region, for example, you have different races. So you have the Malays, you have the Chinese, you have Indians, and you have other races. I'm also married to
Okay.
Malaysian. She's like from the others races, so she's
Okay.
not from the major
Mhm.
races. And I think everybody, the way they grow up, they see the country
Mhm.
in a unique
Yes.
perspective. So for you as Amir, I'm assuming you are Malay
Yes.
ethnicity. How did you see Singapore growing up?
Um. Well, that's a very interesting question. How do I see Singapore growing up? Okay. So people always say that the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So,
Mm,
from my perspective, it's not as green over here as from what I see on the other side. Like
mm,
I think an observation that I would like to compare with is perhaps Singapore and Dubai. I feel like the grass is
okay.
really greener there. Growing up, I
Did you live in Dubai? Sorry to interrupt.
um,
Did you live in other countries
I have
before?
never lived in another country before, but
Okay.
I frequent to Dubai because of a lot of reasons. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, how I view Singapore growing up was it is pretty safe, as what a lot of people always say. But I think it is too competitive. Whether it's in
mm,
education, whether it's in the career that you actually have, no matter what industry it is, I think it is very competitive. And while competition is good, I think excessive competition without um, a clear direction or clear destination, I think it kind of just doesn't make sense. And I
mm,
feel like because for me, academically, I'm not that good. I think that if when I was younger, people would have told me that no matter how bad you do, you can still somehow make it in life. I think at least that will take the pressure off me. But because of the competitive nature of the country, it
mm.
has affected me while I was growing up. Because academically I don't do well, and yeah, and I always thought that whenever you cannot achieve academically, you will always lose out in life. But yeah, I realized that actually it's not the case.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Yeah, I did sense that when I was in Singapore. It's quite competitive, and it's like very high
Yeah.
energy place. and
But the
and
question
yeah, there's pros and
the
cons.
question is why that much competition, right? When everybody is going to end up the same. Like when
Mm,
I observe some of my friends who are already abroad, they are
mm,
not in the Singapore's education system. I mean, their children are not in the Singapore's education system anymore. And while the children grow up over there, they still end up the same as the Singaporeans who have gone to NUS or NTU, the prestigious universities here, and still they are on the same level after the academic journey. So,
okay, so you are comparing to the student, let's say, who went to NUS or
hmm,
NTU, with the student who, let's say, went to other countries and studied in other universities and then came back to Singapore,
yes,
that they end up at the same
yes,
level.
that's what I observe a lot.
Okay.
And it's not only in Singapore, like no matter which country you go to, whether you are a NUS graduate or whether you are perhaps um, I mean some other university graduate. I don't want to name names. Some other university
Mm,
graduate, you will end up having the same job with the same kind of salary. So that is the reason why
mm.
I'm frustrated with why so much competition. Mm,
Okay, okay, I understand that. Well, I do have some experience because I tried to get job in Singapore and stuff like that. So I know how competitive it can be. Maybe you are right. Uh, Maybe as a Singaporean, you might end up in the same place. But I can tell you, as a foreigner,
mhm,
I think it does play a matter because I notice a lot of employers, if you are even the government, like when you want to get your visa approval, your EP approval, they will look that if you are from those NUS or some elite universities, you get a priority
mhm,
compared to someone who came from unknown university. So I did notice that even some Malaysians told me they have a degree, let's say some like a not very famous Malaysian university, and in Singapore it was not accepted. Like they say, no, we won't accept your qualification.
but that is from the
So
government standpoint, or is it from the company standpoint?
well, from that person who told me, it was from the company standpoint.
Okay.
But I know now with the new rules that coming from MOM,
Mhm,
they do look at at the university, and they have like a ranking with
mhm,
numbers. So if you are from those Ivy League universities, you get higher
mhm,
numbers, so your chance will be higher to get your EP approval.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe for locals, as you mentioned, it might not
Yeah.
matter. And I think also growing up in the high school, we have the high school exam, and everybody compete at that exam, and because this is going to determine if you're going to a good university, or even if you are going to university at all, or you can just go diploma, or you almost you pass but you almost get nothing
Mhm,
to study in university. So I did not do well in that exam, and I thought it's the end of the world.
mhm,
And I was so stressed.
mhm,
Like I think that day when I thought the world has ended, like
yeah.
how I hear some stories, people suicide and
Yes.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. For some students, it's really like the end for them.
Mhm,
But later, I found out no, there are other solutions.
yes.
Like I could study abroad. I managed to find a solution at the end. Like so, it was not the end for me.
Mhm,
And I got my degree. I worked. I become an entrepreneur. I started multiple startups. I raised funds. Like I would say I done
mhm,
well. Even maybe on paper on that high school exam, I was
yeah.
terrible, and I thought it's the end for me.
Yes. That's the reason why earlier I mentioned like I feel at least in the education system, somebody need to address the fact that the academics and the education is not the entire your entire life.
I
Yeah,
agree
but yeah,
because
yeah. Like to me, like there was not that conversation. The conversation wasn't around. That's the reason why a lot of people thought
mm,
it's the end of the world. So is it fair for
yeah,
students? I don't think so, right? Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I talk to also many students because I do mentor some students,
Mm-hmm.
so I can sense this pressure coming from
Mm-hmm.
parents, coming from the school, coming from university. Like sometimes the parents also doesn't make it any easier for the
Yeah.
student, and I do understand in Singapore it's really competitive. Like they put so much pressure on the student, and I think maybe things start to change now. Like they start to realize, because the problem, Singapore want to be the best in everything in the world. They want to, on every criteria, on every metric, to be the number one, number two in the world, and they done very brilliantly. Like I can tell you, around the world everybody respects Singapore. Like even in the Middle East, when you tell people this product from Singapore, this person from
Yeah.
Singapore, this service, everybody
Yeah.
respect it, and we know it's the
Yeah.
best. But this is coming at a price. Like even the working adults now, people like working overtime, working hard.
Yes.
So I think now they start to take a step back and reanalyze, like, what do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
in life. So always everything will come at a price. If you want to be the best in everything, that is going to be stressful, because you are also competing with like high achieving countries like
yes,
China, and these people don't care. They have a high population, a lot of
yes,
resources. And if you look at Singapore, it is maybe one of the poorest countries in the world in terms of natural
yes.
resources, but now it is one of the leading country almost on every metric. So that come at a price.
Mm, yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, did I mentioned you mentioned you have a brother. So do you have many siblings? What was like your family like?
Um,
How many siblings
I,
did you
I
have?
have one elder brother and one elder sister. Uh,
Okay, so you are the
yes, I'm the
youngest.
youngest. Yeah, but of
Okay,
course,
okay.
they say the youngest are always pampered. Of course, I beg to differ. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think it
I,
really
I think
differs between family to family. Yeah,
yeah, and I think each kind of brother, like whether the eldest or the youngest, each one has, or the middle child, each one has their own
yes,
challenges. So they might have some breaks here or there, but they will also have their own
yes,
challenges.
definitely, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you went to nursing,
Yes.
but I think after that, you didn't. I don't know. You stayed in nursing, or
Okay.
I know you started a podcast,
Yeah.
or you work in crypto. So can you
Okay.
tell us more about
Okay.
it?
So yeah.
Or if you also have any interesting stories from your time being a nurse, also feel free to share. So I will leave this up to you how you want to,
Okay.
yeah, organize it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, I'm still a registered nurse in Singapore. But yeah, right. This year I'm focusing on my business more. I have officially left my previous employment. So yeah. What happened was that so the journey was like this. Nursing was my second diploma. Like I mentioned, my first diploma is engineering, right? So my second diploma is nursing. So when I took the diploma, there was no subsidies. I had to pay the full
Mm,
school fees as per how, let's say, a foreigner were to come to Singapore and without any scholarship, how much they're supposed to pay. So my total school fees over 3 years was about $68,000. Of course, they told me that I have to pay the full $68,000 before my graduation. My first 2 years, I managed to do sales and I managed to raise about 40,000 to pay off the school fees. But on my final year, because of the final year projects, the exams, and also my attachments, uh, that was where I couldn't continue with my sales job. So I couldn't come up with that remaining 20,000 just before I graduate. And I brought it up to the registrar or the principal of the school. I said that, hey, I really could not pay this remaining, I think at that point of time was about 22,000. Uh, can we come up with some sort of a deal, where I can get my diploma, start working, and then come up with a payment plan? But of
mm,
course, he claims that you can't. I can understand, as of course at that point of time I was angry and frustrated at things, but along the way and as I grew to be someone who's running my own business, I can understand that it doesn't make financial sense for them because they may not actually recoup back the money in the event I were to decide to run away and not continue paying them. Yes, legal action can be done, but it's only to a certain extent. And even if I were to declare for bankruptcy or anything, they cannot recover back the money. So, in hindsight, I can understand their decision, but of course, at that point of time, I was frustrated. So, what I did is with some help of my family, and also I took up some loans, legal and illegal loans, and that was how I started my nursing career. Um, uh, my first 3 years in my nursing career, I I also had a second job. At that point of time, Uber was starting to make their footprint in Singapore. Grab was also starting up. So that was where I took the chance with the great incentives at that point of time to, to be able to finance the loans that I have took, and also to be able to continue with my career. But at that point of time, I feel like, um, you know, I studied so hard, I've really worked so hard, but the salary that I'm getting as a nurse is not allowing me to be someone I truly want to be, for my family, for my friends, and also for myself. So that was where I start to look into different things. And back in 2017, I wanted to start a health tech company. But of course, I didn't have any experience and I didn't have any resources. At that point of time, I was still deep in debt. So that was during the ICO boom. I think for you as a
Mm.
technopreneur, you know the whole ICO boom and all, right? And that was when I realized that, hey, this whole blockchain, Bitcoin, ICO thing is interesting, and it's an interesting way to actually raise money. So that was where I dive into the whole blockchain space, and I kind of learn about what it's all about, how it's actually much. I mean, in my point of view, how it's actually much better than the financial system that we are already in. How we can help a lot of other people. How wealth can be transferred in the span of a few years. So, but of course, at that point of time, like I mentioned, I didn't have resources, contacts, and also experience. That startup journey didn't really take off, but I learned a lot, especially in terms of the Web3 and the blockchain part. But I didn't like put much attention to that after my startup didn't work out, because I still have to go through life, right? Like with all the problems that I
Mm.
have. So eventually, as time goes by, I think it was in 2019, that was when I revisit the whole blockchain and crypto and NFT thing. And that was where I realized that, hey, actually, this can be something that can change someone's wealth or financial position in just a few years. And at the point of time, I think the whole staking thing was starting out in the crypto space. And then I start to see yields like 14, 15, 20 over percent. When, like the conventional financial institution, they cannot give such yield, right? So that was when I really
Yeah.
looked into it and I start invested in it. And during the 2021 market boom in the crypto space, that was where I really hit my first financial goal. Managed to get out of debt and also managed to hit my first financial goal. So yeah, that was how I started to get into Web3. And at that point of time, I started to learn about NFT and how digitalization or smart contracts actually work. And I realized that, hey, actually, there's a lot of things can be tokenized. And the very first
Yeah.
thought that I had was real estate. In Singapore, for
Mm.
you to sell or buy a house, it takes 3 months to actually have the whole completion process. But if you can have it in a smart contract form, it can happen within a few minutes. So to me, like,
Yeah.
this can actually disrupt a lot of industries, and this is really something that I feel that really can change the entire world. And that was when I started to have my own real world asset NFT company. And eventually, as time goes by, I slowly uh, get myself out of the working from the hospital, because, of course, working in the hospital is very tiring, right? And with the
Yeah.
first financial targets that I've actually met, I cashed out a bit, and then in 2022, I took a gap year. I really um, didn't work. I really tried to figure out what I want to do with my life. And after a lot of reflection in 2023, I started two other companies. One is my podcast, and one is my first aid training center. So yeah, that was pretty much my journey throughout my nursing career. Yes, of course, in my nursing career, I have my ups and downs. But the main key I realize is that me wanting to have a bigger family while I'm expanding my family, having a nurse's salary won't really allow me to give the best for my children. So that was where I start to look into other options for myself. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So you, after that, you no more working as a nurse. You focused on the crypto, on the blockchain, and on your podcast, right?
Yes, correct. But I'm still working part-time nursing right now. And the reason is because
Mm.
I don't want to lose my I don't want to lose my license because, like I mentioned, I invested so much,
Yeah.
put in a lot of effort in it,
Mm.
right? So I need to have it to clock a few hours every few years. So I'm still doing my
Mm.
part-time nursing, but this year my focus is more towards the podcast itself. Mm.
Okay. So if I go a little bit back, so you were telling me about the struggle during your studies and during this nursing
Yeah.
school and all of that. Did you feel like that the education system failed you, or do you think no, that experience was great and it prepared you to go to the next step and it prepared you to be like more resourceful and figure things out? How do you see it?
Resourcefulness, yes, I definitely agree with that because, like I mentioned, during my time when I was a nursing student, I was doing sales. And the
Hmm.
best way to learn business is not through business schools. And I think you will agree with me, right? The
Yeah,
best way to learn
definitely.
business is really through sales. Because through sales, not only you will grow your contacts, not only you will grow your resources, but you will also learn skills. You pick up skills that schools just doesn't teach. So yes,
Yeah.
it helped me. It prepared me to be much more resourceful, and it prepared me to be a business owner today. But of course, at that point of
Mm.
time, I felt like I felt betrayed because there was a lot of narrative in Singapore about oh, we need more nurses. We need to make sure that we don't rely on what's it called under nationality nurses for our system. But I felt that there was not support for me who genuinely wants to be a nurse. So
Okay,
so
okay.
that was how I felt.
Okay, so I don't know, in Malaysia, for example, they do have something called like student loan. So it's under the
Yeah.
government, and even anybody can. I don't know the details. I never applied for something like that. I'm a foreigner, but from what I see, like from my colleagues and classmates, like almost anybody can just go there, say I want to study at this university. They will give them the money, and then after they work, they can pay back. And the problem in Malaysia, a lot of people does not pay back,
Yes.
and these people eventually will be punished, like they cannot travel overseas
Mm.
or something like that. So there are some certain measurement they start to take against those who doesn't pay their student loan. Is there in Singapore something like student loan, something like this supported by government or no?
Okay. So that is during that period of time when I was like understanding the entire financial system in Singapore. That was where I realized that uh, the financial system needs to make money for itself.
Of
Yeah.
course, so to survive
Yes.
and sustain.
And when there's in Singapore and the banking system here, I believe they have actually done a lot of research and compare themselves with other country to be able to know that whether this is something feasible for us or not. Because ultimately, like you
Mm,
mentioned earlier, we don't have resources and all, right? So
mm.
our banking system really needs to work. And yeah, they have student loans, but it's only for people who are studying and working at the same time. People who,
Oh, studying and
yes,
working.
correct. People who have a full-time job with their own CPF contribution, their own tax declaration. With all this, then you can take up loan. So at the point of time, because
But if you are a student studying full time, how you will be able to work as well? It's not really possible,
of
right?
course it's not possible. Yeah.
Mm. So is this like for postgraduate, or how about undergraduate?
It's the same thing. As long as you want to take
It's
a
the
bank
same.
loan for your student loan, you need to be. working, or you need to have someone to take up the loan instead of you.
Oh, so here in Malaysia you will have a
Mm.
guarantor. So maybe your father is
My
working.
father was
So he
working,
will
but
be, for example, he will be your guarantor.
yeah, my father was working, but the thing is, they are not allowing a guarantor, but they want someone to take up the loan for the student.
Ah,
Yes, so that
okay, okay.
means the loan will be under a different name.
Okay,
Yes, I
under the
can
guarantor.
decide
I
not
got it.
to help out. Let's say my father were to take up the loan, right? Of course, I can decide like, hey, Dad, I don't want to pay you. You know, of course I can do that, but
Mm.
ultimately the financial system needs to work. My dad still needs to pay the loan. The bank still needs to function the way it's supposed.
So this loan will come from the bank. It's not from a certain agency or certain government
No, because
department.
the reason why government agencies don't do that is because for Singaporeans they already heavily subsidize the education
Ah,
system.
okay,
So,
okay.
but like I mentioned, because it's my second time taking up a diploma, my second
Mm,
time taking up the diploma, there is no such subsidy anymore. Hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So it's unique to this
Yes.
circumstance. I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, and then you went to crypto, blockchain, NFTs, ICO. So, is there any interesting story? Like, what project did you build? Like, how did that work for you?
Okay. So right now we are still working on the project because initially we wanted to. Okay. So first of all, our ethos is we want to make it as Sharia compliant as possible.
Okay,
So
interesting.
if we want the project to be tagged or to be tied to a real world asset, we need to acquire the real world asset first. So
Yep.
in 2022 and 2023, I spent quite a bit of time to look for investors um, before I actually launched my NFT because I want to make sure that it's Sharia compliant. But I couldn't find investors, like I mentioned. I'm still building my resources, I'm still building my contacts, I'm still building my network. And hence the reason why the podcast was a start. But yeah, because I couldn't raise the funds that I was seeking, I decided to scale down the plan instead of tying the NFTs to real estate. Right now, what we are doing is we have already acquired a portfolio of livestock, and this livestock valuation will be the value of the NFT. Yeah,
Interesting. So you buy assets as, for example, livestock. So could be, let's say,
yes,
cows, sheep,
yes.
some animal, and you tokenize those livestock as NFTs,
We
not as
we
tokens.
tokenize the portfolio value, not the livestock.
The
Yes.
portfolio. Okay, so the portfolio, let's say it has, for example, 100
Mhm.
cows. So you tokenize the portfolio. So it could be 100 cows, 100 sheep,
Yes. Yes.
whatever. Okay, and then those people who hold those, what they get, a dividend,
So every year,
or they can trade those.
so from the third year onwards, every year, whenever we sell off half the flock, they will be able to get the yield because
Interesting.
for us we focus more on goats and sheep, right? Goats and sheep will breed twice a year.
Mm,
So from there, with that growth, we'll be able to pay off the yield. Mm.
nice. And where do you buy those livestock? Is it in Malaysia? Is it, because I don't think it's
Yeah,
in
it's not in
Singapore, right?
Singapore. So our farm operator is in Malaysia, but it's a Singapore company.
Mm,
Their holding company is in Singapore. They have multiple farms around the world. But the
mm,
stock that we have is in Desa itself, in Malaysia.
nice. Nice. Actually, I never thought of like livestock,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, that's quite creative. Is there any other competitors doing that, or are you like,
There's
no,
no
no one?
competitor, but at the same time, um, whenever we say there's no competitor, maybe someone out there is already doing it, but we just are not
Yeah.
aware of it, right? But from my knowledge as of right now, I
Mm.
don't know of any competitors. Yeah. And also,
Okay.
our launch, because we are planning to have our official NFT launch in this August. Our launch
Mm,
will actually be private sales. It won't be public sales. So it will only be by invitation only. Yeah.
I see. I see. Because in the like the blockchain and the Web3 and all of that, there is, I don't know, like I feel there's kind of a stigma,
Mm,
or a lot of projects like are not, like, you feel they're not real project, but like I don't know, I feel your implementation is actually quite
mm,
smart. And yeah, like you managed to use the blockchain in a meaningful
yeah.
way, like in a way, so it increased traceability, it increased authenticity, and it's easy for people, like as you mentioned, you have smart contracts, you, yeah, I think it's very practical. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, the ethos is we really want to make it Sharia compliant. I mean,
Yeah, and the Sharia compliant part, like I don't know, in Singapore, I feel there is not many companies like who are Sharia compliant.
that's not really.
I did talk like a while ago with a very interesting startup, and they want me to become the CTO. But most of it, I notice it's loans and it's
Yeah.
like financial services. But and the guy who's the CEO is a Muslim guy.
Mm,
So I asked him, I do you have plans to be Sharia compliant? So he told me like, I wish, but I don't think so. Like not at the moment, at least. Like, so even the CEO is a Muslim, so he was like a bit hesitant to go with the Sharia compliant.
yeah.
So I didn't know, like, is it because of MAS? Like, is it regulatory, or is it very difficult to do this kind of business in Singapore? So I don't know, is it the market, is it the regulation?
It's
Like
actually.
in Malaysia, for example, every bank has an Islamic
Mm,
side for it, but the population here is majority Muslim, so it's a different story from Singapore. But I still think Singapore can do very well, because it's not only Singaporean. Singapore is like the hub of the financial in Southeast Asia, and I think they can attract a lot of people, like a lot of people from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from around the region, even from the Middle East. I think they would be very interested to invest in Singapore, or use financial services from Singapore. I don't know, what's your thought on that?
yeah. So first of all, I think it's only right for me to um, address the elephant in the room. My Web3 company is not a Singapore company. I
Not,
not a
huh?
Singapore company.
Not a Singapore
It's
company. Okay.
I incorporated in Dubai. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and it is because of the regulation and the red tapes that we have in Singapore. It's not like I mean like and of course one of the reason is really the financial system, right? In Singapore, there's no Islamic finance, right? Maybank used to
Mm.
have it, but I think they I might be wrong, but I think they are not no longer having the Sharia compliant products anymore. But otherwise, generally in Singapore, there's no bank that actually does Islamic banking. Hence the reason why.
I heard there used to be a bank, but it shut down.
Yeah.
Like maybe it could not
So,
survive,
so
or
HSBC was one of the banks that actually provide the Sharia compliant facilities, but yeah, they no longer do it. I think since like more than 5 years ago. I remember it was before COVID that they stopped the financial the Islamic banking aspect of their bank. Yeah.
okay,
Hmm.
okay,
But I
got it.
mean, ultimately, because one observation that I have is Islamic doing it in the Sharia compliant way is the most sustainable way and is the most fair way to actually benefit not only myself but also the investors, right? That's the reason why we
Mm.
really, from the start, we really make sure that it is Sharia compliant. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move maybe to the
Hmm.
podcast. So you have what you call it, the Golden Nugget
Yes.
podcast, right?
Yes.
So what is this podcast about? Why did you decide to like start a podcast? So can you tell us a little bit more
Okay.
there?
So I think it was in 2017 or 2018. I can't recall. Um, I can't recall well, but it was 2017 or 2018. I heard this podcast by this guy. His name is Omar Elakar. I think he's an American, and his podcast is called the Passionate Few. Um,
The
the
passionate
Passionate Few. Yeah.
few. Okay.
Um, he is at that point of time a nobody. He just started his own podcast. He interviewed a few uh, network marketing leaders, but on his third episode, he actually interviewed Grant Cardone.
Hmm.
And to me, I think that was impressive. Like, how can a nobody suddenly on his third episode interview a billionaire, right? That is a very
Hmm.
interesting concept. So I have been wanting to do my own podcast because I mentioned I tried my startup and it didn't work out because I have no contacts, right? So I told myself like,
Hmm.
hey, actually having a podcast and designing it to benefit the um, those who are much more wealthier than me, or those who have a higher reputation than me, I can benefit them in a way that with my listeners, they can also get a bit more, how do I put this, a bit more reach to the listeners that I have. So,
Hmm.
so I told myself like, I think this podcast concept is interesting, but at that point of time, I don't know how to actually start it. 2019, there's this Malay podcast in Singapore. With I think on the third episode, they topped the charts in Singapore Spotify podcast list. And for almost 5 years, they are always at the top. If it's not the top one, perhaps they are within the top five or the top 10 at most. But for the past 5 years, they have showed the way on how to actually run a successful podcast in Singapore. But of course, their niche is toward the Malay community in Singapore.
So they speak in Malay
Yes,
or English?
majority of their
It's in Malay. Bahasa
yes, I think about 95% of their episodes they speak in Bahasa Melayu. Yeah, and of course, along the way we learn from them because they found a way to not only uh, be consistent with their podcast, but they also showed us how they actually monetize the podcast. So in a way, we have that uh, how do I put this? They have given us that that training, on how actually we can run a
Hmm.
podcast in Singapore. Because before that, while the podcast industry around the world is much more mature, in Singapore, I feel that that company, that three Malay boys, they were the one who actually start the podcast scene in Singapore and grow the podcast scene in Singapore. So, of course,
Hmm.
learning from them a lot. In 2023, I finally found my partners, and I told them about the concept and how I see the direction I want it to be. And yeah, that was where we started the podcast. And the podcast is where we only interview business owners, C-suite execs, industry leaders. We only interview this because me and my partners, we want to also grow our contacts. We want to be like
Okay.
that Omar guy in the Passionate Few, where eventually we will know a billionaire who can perhaps give us some advice on how we can actually run our business. So yeah, that was pretty much how the podcast started, and it's still going right now. Mm.
Okay. Interesting. And do you think like people in this region of the world, they are like ready? Like I don't know. From my observation, and I could be wrong. I feel people like short videos, like the short kind of short content, let's say. But are the people here ready for like 2 hour, 3 hour podcast? What's your thought on that?
Um, one of the most, I mean, one of the bigger podcasts in Singapore, the Financial Coconut. Um,
Mm,
they actually shared that the reason why in the US or in Europe or in other countries, basically, why 2 hour, 3 hour podcast it actually works is because of travel time. Going from one place to another, going from one
mm,
state to another, it will take a few hours. So a Joe Rogan 3 hour podcast is actually a norm for people in the US because if they want to drive from a city to another city, that's how long it will take. So that's the reason why the consumption behavior there makes sense for a 2 3 hours podcast. In Singapore, however, um, uh, while yes, a lot of people's attention span is getting lesser because of TikTok shorts, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, but ultimately, there is still that market for people who wants to listen to a long form content. But of course,
What type of people are they? Are these people you think?
for me personally, when I was working back in the hospital back then, while I was like handling patients and stuff, right? On one of my ears, I would have my own earbud and listening to a podcast. That is for
Mm,
me. But for other people, I know like housewives, they mentioned that while they are at home and doing the whatever house chores that they need to do, they will also open a podcast and listen to the long form content. Um, yeah, and there are some people who commute for like more than an hour in Singapore. You know, if let's say they
mm,
were to be working at Changi Airport, but
I know.
they stay at Jurong, it will take like 1.5 hours to get home, right? So yeah, these are the people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
can also be listening to long form content. But otherwise,
Mm. I used to commute from Chua Chu Kang to like the downtown,
hmm,
so
yeah,
1 hour plus. Yeah,
yeah. And
so
Choa Chu
I
Kang
know.
to downtown is actually not that far as compared
Not that far.
as
Yeah.
compared to
Mm,
Changi Airport to Jurong, for example. Yeah.
mm, yeah.
So yeah, there is still that market, but I feel in Singapore, um, in terms of consumers, there's not much issues. But
Mm,
if you want to monetize your podcast, in Singapore, there still needs to be a lot of education to go into the market to understand how they can actually benefit from a podcast. But from a consumer point of view, yes, perhaps a half an hour or perhaps you have a 1 hour podcast, right? And then you break it down into two or three. That's what we do. A 1.5 hour podcast,
mm.
we broke it down into three or two episodes. But otherwise, yeah, long form content for consumers are there, but for people who want to advertise on your platform, there's still a bit of gap there. Mm,
Okay, okay. Because I'm thinking to go with the long format, but not like the 3 hour kind
yeah,
of podcast. Maybe like in the 1 hour, 1 hour-ish, plus minus. Because I like to watch the Joe
mm,
Rogan experience. So to me, the Joe Rogan one, it how it's different from other podcasts, because sometimes it's not about the
yeah,
topic. It is like about knowing the person.
mm,
So like even when he interviewed Donald Trump, or when he interviewed any, it's like if I want to know you, okay, I cannot get to know you in 15 minutes or half an hour. So if I
yes,
if this podcast is going to act for you as a marketing even tool, or so if I want to do business with you,
mhm,
if I watch a podcast about you that is 3 hours, first thing, you cannot make an act for three
yes,
hours. You're going to get very tired. Eventually, you're going to reveal your true self.
yes,
While in those interview, controlled interview, edited, heavily
mm,
edited, like the Joe Rogan, it's unedited. You will see they just in the conversation immediately. They drinking, they
yes,
smoking, they doing whatever. And it is very raw,
yes,
it's very real, and you are sitting 3 hours, it's just a conversation. You will get to know what kind of person is this person
yes,
first, before you go into what his ideology, his thoughts, his business, whatever he stand for, his mission. First, let's know the person. Let's know what kind of person is this. Then let's talk about the ideas. Let's then talk. So I really like that concept. So I want also people to get to know to get to know the person who's in the podcast. Not just like try to sell, or try just to talk about my product, or talk about my company, or talk why I'm so successful and I'm so great. No, no. I feel, I don't know. Sometimes this kind of thing is can become tiring.
yes,
Like, okay, we know you are so great. Like, I don't need to see another podcast where this guy claiming he's the best in everything. So I want to know the people, that at least this is my perspective, and I'm calling it driven by curiosity, because I'm curious to know your story. Like, and sometimes I think I don't need like very high profile people. Let's get to know, because I think everybody maybe will teach us something. So, oh, we got to know your journey. So even if a person in power, let's say he saw your story, maybe he has the ability to improve the system so it can help other people. So not everybody need to go through the same journeys, so through the same mistakes, through the same, you know, challenges in life. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so I think if I can help, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your plan is actually something I would, or at least a content that I would personally enjoy. I know that the content that I enjoy is not what a lot of people does, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see driven by curiosity grow. Mm.
Thank you very much. Okay, you know, we are, I think, going toward the end. Maybe we can talk lighter stuff. Like, what are your hobbies? Like, what do you do in your free time?
Um,
Is there anything you'd like to share, or if you have any interesting story, feel free. Yeah.
I mean, I have three kids, so I don't really
Mm.
have free time.
Nice.
I do love to travel, but of course,
Cool.
I'm more I'm more of a lazy traveler than those adventurous traveler. I like to like be
Mm.
just taking a stroll along whichever shopping district there are, or whichever um, what's it called, like sightseeing kind of place, or attraction, tourist attraction kind of place. And also, I really love to just chill out at a hotel, whenever I travel.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, I really love to travel. The reason why I love to travel was because my mom used to work under Singapore Airlines. So as a family, we get to travel free flight every year until I was 18. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Is there like any culture shock you got from your trips? Like any weird stories that happened with you?
Um, Maybe the reason why I don't have that much culture shock is, aside from the fact that I'm a lazy traveler, uh, maybe it's because I've been traveling from young. So
Mm. Okay.
culture shock, not really that much. Interesting stories. Let me see. I can't think of any because I pre-planned most of my trips, and even with my wife, right?
Mm.
I'm the one who plans the trip, so a lot of things are pretty predictable for me. Uh, the only thing is like yeah, perhaps that one time when I was in Vietnam, uh, I got hustled to buy a pack of peanuts for $20, but I don't feel that is that interesting because I think a lot of people really got scammed, and I've heard of worse stories. Like I have a cousin who actually took a taxi in Ho Chi Minh, and then um, they were supposed to go back to their hotel. So my cousin is a lady, and she was with her daughter at the point of time. They were supposed to go back to the hotel, but end up this person brought her to one dark alley, and then wanted to export money from her. So I feel that was a
Mm.
pretty interesting story. For me, my travel
Mm.
stories is pretty much boring, I guess. But
Okay.
to a lot of people, um, whenever I share with them a lot of things, like for example, last year I went to Dubai Global IT Expo, right? A lot of people don't expect
Mm.
or couldn't fathom the magnitude of the expo, But
Mm.
for me, perhaps it's a norm because I've seen such expo at that size before. Yeah, so yeah, that's why I can't really tell any interesting travel
Mm.
stories, although that is my main hobby.
Yeah, I think next time to when you travel, try not to plan everything. Like I'm complete opposite.
Yeah.
So I remember, when we were students, we were like sitting, me and my housemate, and we had some friends.
Uh-huh.
In the evening, maybe maybe like Maghrib time, we
Uh-huh.
are sitting, and it is a holiday time. So we don't have like university, don't have school tomorrow, like in the next day, or like I don't remember. It was Hari Raya. There was something. Then like we talking like, I don't know if you know Malaysia very well, but there is an island called Langkawi.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking then like, okay, let's go to Langkawi. Okay, all right. So now let's say now 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock we will be at the bus station. So
Uh-huh.
everybody went back quickly to his room, pack whatever, and like who has money, has
Uh-huh.
money. Who doesn't have money, okay, we will pay for you, and then when your
Okay.
parents send you money, you pay us back. And like
Yeah.
in 2 hours time, we're already in the bus station, taking the
Okay.
bus, going to like the north. And we figure out we don't have a hotel booking. We don't we just went, at that time still like online booking, and it's not that popular. So we went to the
Uh-huh.
bus station. Of course there's no but it's Hari Raya, or some holiday,
Yeah.
so everything booked. So like we found a bus going maybe like in 6 hours time.
Uh-huh.
So we waited there in the bus station, like wasting time going here, find a movie,
Okay.
we go watch a movie. Like we just wasted because our house is quite far, so we can't go
Uh-huh.
back. So we,
Yeah.
we wasted time at shopping mall, watching movie, watching maybe two movies in a row. And then we took the bus 7 hours. We
Okay.
reached maybe like I don't know. Like there was jam. It was
Yeah.
terrible. Like it's supposed to take maybe 7 hours, but it took like 12 hours.
Oh.
like
Oh.
like because it's unplanned, but
Yeah.
we really had like very exciting time. Like then we reached there, we need to get a ferry to go to the island, so we have to
Yeah.
figure out. And we found a chalet. It was cheap,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily uh we find rooms. And
Yeah.
we after that we went another year, or other, I think few times before that. Actually the chalet we just find by chance. It was the best chalet for that price, because
Okay.
it was just on the beach. Like we just get out of the chalet, you are on the beach, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
the best beach, even without doing any research. So
Okay.
so we used to do a lot of this, like spontaneous, like, okay, let's
I
go
see.
this
Okay.
place, let's go that place. But I remember, for me, when I came to Malaysia, it was like a culture shock for me.
Mm.
So I never traveled before, and I think I came to Malaysia, I was maybe like 22 years old,
Okay.
21. It's like 2005. So it's in Syria, it was winter time, so it was cold. It was
Yeah.
December, so maybe the temperature in the day is like 10, at night it's like 0 or minus something.
Uh-huh.
So I was wearing winter clothes. I came to Malaysia,
Okay.
Malaysia hot, and I'm wearing
Yeah.
winter clothes, and I was
Yeah.
sweating like crazy. Like I think the culture shock first from the airport. The
Yeah.
airport was like, to me, huge. There's a train in the airport. I'm like, what is, it's like somebody coming from the village, and
Yeah.
everything. I never seen anything like that. Our airport is so small compared to
Yeah.
KLIA is
Yeah.
huge, and there is a train inside the airport, and I don't know how to go. Luckily, there was a Malaysian Chinese guy.
Okay.
He helped me. He was sitting next to me. He helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And if first time I'm flying, so when those turbulence, so the airplane shaking, half the way. So at first I went to Doha, from Doha, then to Kuala Lumpur. So
Okay.
the whole way I'm listening to Quran. I'm so
Okay.
scared.
Your first time on a flight.
Yeah, I didn't sleep for even a minute.
Okay.
So it was, I think, like 14, 15 hours flight. I didn't sleep.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the night before, I didn't sleep before traveling, because I was so excited. I came to Malaysia, it's very hot. And I'm used to, in winter, I don't know if you
Yeah.
experience this. In winter time, you won't drink so much water. Like
Yeah.
maybe the entire day you drink 2 glass, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because you're not sweating, like you don't. And in Malaysia, no, you have to drink 2 liter, I think, of water.
Yes.
And I'm not used to drink that much of water. So
Uh-huh.
I immediately got sore throat,
Okay.
constipation. And then when I reach, it's very hot. I feel like I'm in sauna because Damascus, my city, is very
Oh,
dry,
uh-huh.
while Malaysia is tropical, is humid. I'm not used to this weather. So,
Okay.
and then the food totally different. So
Yes.
the food is spicy. I'm used to,
All the
let's say,
rice. Yeah.
yeah, I'm used to drink the milk. Sorry, the tea. Our
Uh-huh.
tea is without milk. So when I order tea, they give me the tea with milk. I told them this is not tea. They said no, this is tea. So
Yeah.
like everything is different. And
Uh-huh.
even I took the taxi from the airport to my place, and he went through toll. I'm like, what is? Are we crossing border?
Mm.
I didn't know what is toll. I don't
Okay.
know. The
Okay.
Singapore one is different. You have the thing on the top,
ERP.
but
Yeah.
in the Malaysia you have that thing open close.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
everything was like totally different for me. So it was a huge culture shock.
Ah. Okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
you were 22, right, at that point of time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Things are. I think if you grow up like not traveling out of your where you stayed or where you grew up,
Mm.
yeah, a lot of things will definitely be a culture shock.
Yeah, yeah. After that, I managed to travel many countries. Even my passport is like, I think you are lucky. Your passport is Singaporean. I think
Yeah.
practically you can travel anywhere without visa. For me, everywhere I travel, I need visa.
Yeah.
But I so far I went to Singapore. I lived in Singapore for a while.
Uh-huh.
Taiwan, Vietnam. So Vietnam, I went to Ho Chi Minh.
Okay.
China.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Qatar for a short time. Yeah, yeah. Those are the countries I managed to travel.
Mm. Okay. Well, what about Europe?
Europe, no, I never been to Europe.
But you need visa or anything?
Of course, I need a visa, and I need like somebody to be my guarantor. And
Oh,
like,
okay.
I have my brother now. He live in Germany, so he's
Okay.
a doctor there.
Okay.
Yeah, he now has a child, so he become a German citizen.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
For me, almost 19 years in Malaysia, and
uh-huh.
I lived for some time in Singapore before COVID and after COVID.
Mm.
But
Okay.
for me, I like Singapore. I think a lot of people might like uh, talk some like negative a bit stuff, but I don't know, like the energy of Singapore, like it fit me. Like I like
Okay.
high energy kind of thing. I understand the stressful part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think, especially when sometimes you grow up in age, like you want to take a step back, you want to enjoy like your
Yeah.
time with family. So I think there's pros and cons. Like Malaysia is a little bit slower,
Yes.
maybe compared to Singapore, but at the same time, like I don't know, like you feel like you can't build I don't know, at least for me, like I can't build my future in Malaysia.
Okay.
uh while in Singapore, I think there's better chance. Like sometimes I think like this: build your future in Singapore, and if you want to retire in Malaysia,
Yes.
so your
Yeah.
money can go longer. So pros and cons, like you want to
Yes.
enjoy.
That's what a lot of Singaporeans are doing now. They are purchasing property in Malaysia,
Mm.
in Johor, like the Iskandar Putri area. That is pretty much where a lot of Singaporeans are staying right now. Like with 4,000 ringgit, they can like service a loan for a semi-detached house. Whereas in Singapore,
In
our interest
Singapore,
rate is more.
property
Yeah,
is very, very, very
yeah,
expensive. Like
yeah.
when I lived there in Chua Chu Kang, I rented a common room.
Hmm.
You know, I think for close to $1,000. In Kuala Lumpur, I can rent a condominium, maybe furnished 3 bedroom near the Twin Towers for that
Yes,
price.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why a lot of Singaporeans are
And that
taking.
one in HDB, like I was living in HDB, nothing fancy, no swimming pool, no high
Yeah.
end gym, nothing. Like facility very basic. But here, like I think the great thing about Malaysia is you can have affordable luxury.
Hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
maybe for Malaysia a bit hard, but let's say if you are a Singaporean, you have some income coming from Singapore, you live in Malaysia, you can live in luxury in affordable price.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
Well,
can buy a car.
what about your startup? Is it a Singapore company or Malaysia company?
So actually, I started like four startups.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started in Malaysia about three companies. In Singapore, I started one company. So
Okay.
my previous startup called Carbon Balance, that was in Singapore. I managed to raise fund for it from Antler. Uh,
Okay.
we raised 100,000, but unfortunately, we could not raise the second round. So we really
Okay.
tried so hard, but the second round, like 2023, was a bad year for startups,
Yes, of course.
and raising fund
And
was very hard. Yeah,
I think in 2023 that was when a lot of VCs they start to realize that hey, we shouldn't be throwing money anymore, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas like in 2021, 2022, I think a lot of people were still like throwing a lot of money on startup.
yeah, yeah. Even if you look like a lot of Southeast Asia funding coming from China. China
Yeah.
funding, like, I think it almost become 10% or 5% of what it used to be.
But you know the reason, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons, but the result is like what happened to us or the other startup. That's like the reality. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the investor, it's more to getting their PR over here because
Mm.
I think they need to invest like with $2 million at least of equity in the Singapore startup scene to be able to get the PR. Yeah, that's
So
the
is
reason
that
why
still going on?
I believe so. Last I was told about this was early of early or mid of last year
Mm.
that it was
Okay.
still going on. Yeah.
Did you start a startup before raise fund, or you didn't go that route?
Like I mentioned earlier, I tried to raise funds, but I couldn't.
Mm.
I think, but at the same time, it's because of Singapore's in the investor market. It's I would say it's not as interesting as Malaysia. You know,
Why?
like they are much more conservative. Whereas
You
in
mean
Malaysia,
investors?
yes, correct. Like whereas in Malaysia, I've heard of some of my friends who told me that they got an investment from this individual 3 years later when they wanted to pay back, whatever that they were supposed to pay back in terms of their to buy back their shares, right?
Mm.
Um, the investor themselves they kind of forget who this person is,
Oh.
you know, and he claims that it really happens a lot in Malaysia. But in Singapore, like they are very conservative. They will be thinking like, do I first of all do I know you? Do I know the people around you?
Mm.
Um, uh, uh, while this is an interesting, while this is an interesting idea, I don't think I should be investing like 100,000 for like 50%. I feel it should be like 90% equity for that kind of amount. Whereas we always hear, I mean,
90%.
yes,
Who?
I know, right? Yeah, whereas like for me, I always hear people raising like 50,000 at like maybe like 10-20% for a tech company
Mm.
for their pre-seed round or their seed round. But for them, they are like 100,000 for like 90% or you even 100% with some buyback clause. So I think they are just being very conservative.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay, let me tell you from my experience. So I
Okay.
raised in Malaysia. I raised in Singapore.
Hmm.
Uh, in general, Southeast Asia investors are the worst investors in the entire world. That's according to them. So this is came from one of the VCs in Singapore. He
Okay.
admitted that we are the worst investors in the entire world. We will ask for the highest equity for the lowest valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so of course the best is Silicon Valley,
Hmm.
but you can't compare Southeast Asia with Silicon Valley at all. Like even with the Middle East, like Silicon Valley, they might invest in crazy ideas, for example. even in the Middle East. But Southeast Asia, actually, these VCs told us. So we were at the Antler cohort. So I participated in Antler. I participated in Entrepreneur First programs, and they told us, do not come up with anything innovative, anything new. This is the VC telling us. He say, this is their literally this is their word. Go find a model that is successful in the West, localize it successfully, have some pilot or early customers, validate that, and then we can talk, and then we will invest in you. If you come up with something new, I don't know it will work or no. I don't want to invest in you. I don't want that headache. This is literally their word. While maybe in Silicon Valley they see something in you, the guy will give you $1 million, give you $2 million. Here, what 2 million? 2 million they consider Series A, not even
Yeah,
seed round.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And in Singapore, I've
uh,
seen angel investors putting in $5,000, and calling themselves angel investors. And yeah, so it's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. Even like the same VC, some VC they have, let's say, a program in Singapore, a program in India, a program in Vietnam, a program, let's say, in US or Dubai. I'm not going to name that VC. That if you see the amount they give in Singapore, let's say it's 100K, and then they take back 40K as their program fees.
Mm,
The same VC, the same VC in India, their program in India, they give 250,000. You see, in India they give 250,000. In Singapore they give 100,000.
okay,
So
that same VC.
the same VC, the same company. So I told you in Southeast Asia, they are the worst, the most stingy VCs, and they
Yeah,
ask the most traction. They want you to prove you are really money making. Like they will ask the most, and they will give you the lowest valuation.
yeah.
So,
Even I mean, like in Singapore, the Enterprise Singapore, right?
mm,
They want to look at your 2 years track record before they even give you like a 50,000, uh, you know, uh, investment. So to me, like, I think that 50,000 I can grow in a faster way for me to get into a higher valuation if you were to invest in me earlier. But
mm,
2 years down the road, I don't really think I will need you anymore, right? If I can actually like come up with such a good track record, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then here they're very obsessed with like which university you went, which company you work. So I saw in some VCs how they're profiling the founders. So when they see someone, okay, study at NUS. So actually I wanted to ask you, did you face any discrimination, let's say because you are what you call it from
yeah.
polytechnique? What do you call your type of university?
Polytechnic.
Did you face any discrimination, like you think through your career? Because let's say you are not from NUS, you are like from Polytechnic. Is there discrimination there?
Definitely. Remember I told you I was working in logistics
Mm,
for a year? Yeah. Um, I I spoke to my boss. I said that okay, like I wanna progress in my career. Um, I'm thinking of taking a degree in logistic and supply chain management. Right, it's kind of related, right,
mm,
to the job that I was working. And then I asked him like, can this will this allow me to eventually become an executive within the company? He just told me this. He told me that the executive roles are meant for NUS NTU students.
mm.
So if you tell me you are taking from a private university, I'm sorry, I cannot guarantee you such things. So that was one of the reasons why I eventually left, like after just working there for 1 year, because I don't see progression for myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, that is kind of a discrimination, right?
yeah, yeah. So going back to that investor. So they look, for example, somebody studied at NUS or what is it, NYC in New York, or some like what Ivy League,
Yeah,
and then they work for McKinsey or they work for Facebook or Google. So they look at this. Oh, this guy can be a founder. and they will invest in his startup.
Yeah.
But 90, I'm not going to say 99%, let's say 90% of the time,
Mm.
this kind of people, even on paper, they're brilliant, and I'm sure that they are very smart and they're very capable. And but a lot of time for them, entrepreneurship is not going to work.
Yeah.
Why? For example, when we were like me and those people, so we get the same funding. So you have a very small amount left. So they gave you 100K, they took 40K, you end up with 60K. So how
Mm.
much you can pay yourself? Like we paid ourselves $2,500. Okay,
Mm.
but that person, if he go and apply for a job, he can get 20K, and he's a
Yes.
smart person.
Yeah.
So would you sit in a startup where your chance of success is less than 10% for a 2.5K salary? Or would you take a job at McKinsey or Facebook, Google at 20K or
Yeah.
30K?
Yeah.
So most of these people who like very Ivy League and very accomplished people, they shut down their startup in less than 6 months. And I will tell you,
Mm.
there are some, not all, some, they didn't even do anything. It was for them something to put on their portfolio or in their resume that I did a startup on this. And then they
Uh-huh.
move on, they took a job. Or it was just a career break for them. Like they left this company, they don't know what to do. Okay, I'm going to do a startup. Then they get another job, they left that and go on.
Yeah.
While people maybe a little bit less accomplished or came up from maybe not very known universities, we at least went 2 years. We tried for two
Yeah.
years like
Yeah.
we only like kind of raised the white flag after 2 years of trying. Like at least we
Yeah.
tried. Yeah, but those guys, I see no stamina because he is smart. Like I can get 20K or 30K. Why I'm sitting here at 2.5K? Doesn't make
Yes.
sense.
Yeah. 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 I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize that they are in such position, but yeah, I would agree that they definitely don't have the stamina.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of I think of entrepreneurs. If you are a logical person, if you are a number guy and you just calculate everything by pen and paper and calculator, doesn't make sense. Like you
Yeah.
just better get a job.
Yes.
Yeah, like you need to be a little bit crazy to like or obsessed with something. Like I need to solve this problem. Like you really obsessed, you have some personal story, then you will be so crazy that you will give up a lot of upside, a lot of safety,
Mm.
financial safety, career safety, just to solve something.
But back to I mean your experience.
Mm.
You mentioned you raised funds in Singapore and Malaysia. Which one? Because after that you generalize the whole Southeast Asia, right? But which one was much easier to get funding? Is it in Singapore or was it in Malaysia?
I don't know, my experience is Singapore.
Okay.
uh at the end, I only managed to raise first round, I could not raise second round.
Mm.
I raised in Malaysia before, but from an angel investor who was from outside Malaysia, so he was not Malaysian.
Okay.
Uh, but I noticed like for every one VC in Malaysia, there is 20 or 30 VCs in Singapore. So if you go by
Oh, okay.
quantity, if you go by quantity, Singapore has more VCs.
Mm.
Then if you also go by quality, the quality of VCs are better in Singapore. But in
Okay.
general, as I told you, both of them are very demanding and they are the worst in the world. So
Mm.
if I choose, I will
Yeah.
definitely choose Singapore. And you can see also like Grab wasn't from Malaysia.
Yes.
If Grab stayed in Malaysia and raised from Malaysia, it will never be in the position today. I
Mm.
really think they success because they moved to Singapore and then they continue there. If they stayed in Malaysia, they won't be that successful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
That's
this is my
interesting.
opinion. I could be wrong, but this is my observation and my opinion. Because I think the environment matter. Because
Yes.
really the skills, the talent people, they are very talented people in Singapore. I feel it's more welcoming. I don't know. I felt Singapore more welcoming. Like, I lived in Malaysia for many years. I lived in Singapore for short time. So But I don't know. I felt more welcomed in Singapore compared to Malaysia
Okay.
as an
Okay.
expatriate.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Uh, yeah, yeah. I think what you say about Grab is true. Like they started with My Taxi, right? They call it My
Yeah,
Taxi.
yeah. My taxi it
Then
used to be.
they become Grab. Yeah. When they became Grab, that was when they got the GIC funding and
Yeah, and
all.
don't forget Grab. Their connections are in Malaysia. Like the guy father,
Mm,
he's very known in Malaysia. He has other businesses. He could have helped his son in Malaysia, but the guy has to go to Singapore to succeed. Like we used to have a government agency called Magic in Malaysia
mm,
that Grab went to and graduate from, and this guy decided, we're not going to invest in. We're not. This guy's not worth it. So it slipped
I
between their
see.
fingers.
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
with the guy father connection, he could not get funding in Malaysia, so he went to Singapore.
Okay. Um, I mean, that example aside,
Mm.
and this is a question I always ask in my podcast. Um, do you think you will have a better advantage as a second generation entrepreneur?
I do think there is advantage there, but
Mm,
it's not the answer. Like it's not a definite. Like I still think if you are first generation, you still can succeed. It will be harder,
mm,
but you still can you still can succeed. But in general, the entrepreneur or the startup journey, it is very, very, very risky, and your chance of success is very low. So if you are first generation, no connections, your journey going to be tougher definitely. But there are people who manage to do it. Yeah, but I think 90%, 95%, 99% they will fail. But as you mentioned, I think you mentioned that you learned from those experiences from your startup. Uh, so I think at the end of the day, to me, is the journey. Like, don't
uh-huh.
focus too much on the destination. Like I did for startup, I almost failed in all of them, but I definitely learned a lot. And if I go back in time, I don't think I will change any
Mm,
any choice I took. Yeah.
okay. Your startup, do you exit or did you have to consider?
So the first one I did exit. I sold my shares to my other partners. So I got a
Okay.
little bit of cash. I think not bad. The rest I had to shut down. I think the longest startup I worked on is for over 4 years. It was doing okay. There was a period of time. I think 2018. I was having so much business. Like I started rejecting business because I have so much work. I can't accept everything I get.
Uh-huh.
But when COVID came, because a lot of my business was with event organizers, with the museums, with galleries, and COVID came, and all these guys shut down, and then I had to shut down. I couldn't pivot, but I was like too tired, too burned out. Like I was like, no, I'm not. I'm too tired, man.
Mm,
I'm going to shut it down.
okay. And would you ever trade your entrepreneurial journey with um, getting a high-paying job?
Well, it depends on the job. So I did work at one company. I'm not going to name names, and they pay me very well, but the
Mm,
company culture was not good. So so
mm,
the money was not enough. Like uh, I don't know, like at that time I reached a point in my life, like whatever you pay me, if the culture is like this, if I don't feel like how you mentioned, like you didn't feel a purpose.
mm,
Are you millennial as well?
yeah,
Yeah, I think we millennials, we are like this. If we don't feel a purpose, we don't feel a sense,
yeah.
uh or sense of purpose, no, we're not going to do it. I don't know. I don't know the Gen Z how. I feel that
Mm,
no, they're more practical, but
uh-huh.
we maybe we know we need a purpose.
Mhm.
We need like a company with a culture, that good culture.
Mm. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say depend on the company. It has to be a company that I feel I'm contributing and my work is showing. So
Mm.
I
Yes.
need to sense that. Otherwise, if it's just a stupid job, like I'm just passing time, I will be
Mm.
doing something on the side then. I can't just like live without purpose, no matter how much
Mm.
they pay.
True. I agree.
Mm. How about you?
Yeah. It's the exact same answer as you.
Mm.
Like, I think in 2023, I overcompensate and I work a lot more. Um, while I was starting a startup, I still need that cash flow, right? So yeah, I was working like 24-hour shifts. It was
Mm.
crazy. And of course, with all that effort, all that hard work, you still don't get recognized. So, like, question, it made me question, like, why am I doing all this for? You know, like if I have a low paying job, I at least have a bit of cash flow, but at least I'm happy. I get to see my family. My work is much more recognized. I think it makes more sense, you know. And just
Mm.
now you mentioned about uh, uh, entrepreneurs need to be a little bit crazy to be um, like don't mind trading off that 2.5K salary for as compared to those like high paying job just to start up, just to start their venture. It's purely because of the purpose, you know. Like if you were to do a good enough job, you know that you will definitely get recognized. Even
Mm.
if you don't get recognized, you will have that satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Interesting. When your time as a nurse, did you like? Is there any interesting story that you? Is there any moments like it led you? Uh, like for example, did you see somebody dying? Did you see somebody has regrets? Tell you their last words, or because you're in anesthesia, there was nothing, or did you see somebody hallucinating in after the anesthesia? Any stories
Um,
like that?
the most interesting stories I cannot share on the podcast. I
Okay.
can share with you offline, definitely, but
Mm.
I know there will be legal implications if I were to share with you. Um,
Okay, okay. No problem. We don't want to break any law. So,
but what I can share is I think there was one point of time where uh, okay, so I have worked in two major hospitals in Singapore.
mm,
Okay, my first job and it was in the biggest hospital in Singapore, the oldest hospital in Singapore. I think people may know who really. Um, it's filled with a lot of experienced doctors, nurses. So I've had quite a number of people who collapsed during operation, but as an anesthesia nurse, I managed to also assist in making sure that they survive. But when I went to the smaller hospital, that very first death that I faced on the table, it really affected me.
mm,
It affected me mentally because while I have seen deaths in my previous job, but when I was in the smaller hospital, somehow I felt that I wasn't good enough, and I felt that it could be prevented. So what happened was that it was during my night shift. Um, the first patient who actually collapsed while surgery, we have already used a lot of resources, and because it's night time, right? The pharmacy are not open, so we have to use a lot of our reserve resources.
mm,
So we managed to save that first one. But the second one, we couldn't save that person. First of all, we thought that it was a very simple procedure, but it just turned out bad. Secondly, because I was already too tired, it was night shift, and I have already used up all my energy and my brain power on that first patient that collapsed. Um, when the second patient collapsed, I could not think properly.
mm,
Um, as anesthesia nurses, we need to make sure that they have central lines. We need to make sure that they have intra-arterial lines to make sure that we can monitor continuously and also give drugs continuously. But at that point of time, even to assist with the procedure to insert the central venous catheter and also the intra-arterial line, my mind just went blank, and I couldn't even remember what I'm supposed to prepare for my anesthetist to be able to perform the procedure. And I felt that I could be one of the reasons why this person didn't make it, because I was too slow, because I just couldn't think
Mm.
clearly. So that really affected me a lot. That was during COVID season.
Okay, okay.
So it was really tiring, and yeah, it affected me. When I got
But
home,
but but you did your best, like with that circumstances, with the pressure. I'm sure you've done your best, right?
like I say, when I reflect back, I really feel I could have done better, because never in my life at that point of time, I was a nurse for I think 6 years already in anesthesia. Never in that 6 years have I ever blanked out when a patient collapsed.
Okay.
Up till today, that was the only time. Like
So
today in
so
my
so that affected you.
yes, that really affected me. When I got home, it really made me think like, am I really cut out for this? But then as time goes by, I was like thinking like, all that effort that I put in, but I don't get remunerated a lot. So it questioned me being in nursing as a whole, aside
Mm,
from the fact that it gives some sort of satisfaction whenever I face this kind of situation. But
okay,
that incident, it really affected me.
okay, okay. Yeah,
But
definitely this kind of thing.
interesting stories, I cannot share.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's an interesting story. Like, yeah, I'm sure that that's a turning point. But I think it is the nature of that profession. So even you saying you could have done better, but I am sure you've done everything in you to the best of your ability, because we sometimes human. I think you see. I think if you were careless, you won't
Mm,
care. You won't think
yeah.
like you could have done better. This is what I think. But
Mm,
because you care, you thought I could have saved that person, or I could have done better, because I think this is the human nature. Because usually the best people will doubt themselves. They will think I'm not good enough. I could have done better, and this is what they call it, the imposter syndrome. I
mhm,
I I think you can Google that. There you will see that most time the most educated people or most knowledgeable people, the more they know, the more they feel there's more, or there's more I could have done. But actually the other way, the most ignorant people, because they're ignorant, they think they are the best and everything is easy. I can do this, is nothing. And I think part of being an entrepreneur in my early days, like if I know how hard it is, I would not done it. But because I was so naive and I thought, yeah, yeah, this is easy, like we just do, like just put some Facebook ads, and then we can sell, like because of that being naive,
mm,
that make you start something. But when actually, as I said, when you calculate everything and you see on paper, it doesn't make sense. In your situation, because now you can think, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. But in that fraction of second, you really need to think. So you blank, or maybe you took the wrong decision, or maybe you didn't know what to do. Uh, because you know actually more, and I'm sure you've done your best. Even you might think like you could have done better, because if somebody who's careless, yeah, it's not my fault, it's they will blame it on someone else, or think, no, I've done my best. He died because another person
mhm,
fault, the doctor fault, he's too weak. They will find an excuse.
mm. True,
Yeah,
true. I mean, no one have ever put it away from me. But thank you, thank you.
yeah. And I think like you can just reflect from it, and try to see what you can learn. And I think if there are people in that position, they can also rethink it, see in the future how they can do better. And And also even like I don't know now AI is coming like do you think in the future like robots because now surgery even surgery that robots might be doing the surgery now the doctor is controlling the robot and the robot doing the surgery but still the person who's doing the surgery is the doctor but I think in the future most surgery or this kind of thing is going to be done 100% by AI 100% robotic
mm.
so do you think if we have this kind of technology is it going to help us as a humans or is it going to make this kind of procedure less human? Did you get what I mean?
I understand what you mean. From a medical point of view, um, nothing can beat a human's instinct.
Hmm.
Um,
But
from an
sorry
anesthesia,
to contradict you, but you mentioned like you might blank. So human,
mm,
but maybe AI. I don't know. He could also have some error, freeze, do that can happen to AI. But let's assume everything perfect. So he won't blank, for example. So
yes,
would you think AI would be better than a human?
okay. So why I mentioned about nothing beats the human instinct is because and this is sharing from an anesthesia nurse point of view. Okay, whenever my doctor wants to perform a procedure, or even as a in the OT we call it scrub nurse. Uh, when the surgeon is doing the surgery, as a scrub nurse, or for me as an anesthesia nurse,
Sorry, OT is
I
operation theater.
yes, operation theater. So as a nurse, we will already know what to actually give. We will intuitively know what to actually give our surgeons or our anesthetists next.
Hmm.
From and this is from observation and from what we have learned over the years, our experience that we have, we will already know. Okay, if this happens, and we want to prevent this from happening, we must immediately intervene by giving this or by using this or by administrating this. And that is human instinct. You cannot have that in an AI because AI is ones and zeros, right? Like
Hmm.
this happens, then you do this. But human instinct is before this happens, I need to do this. So
Hmm.
I don't think AI will replace humans like uh, what a lot of people say, especially in the medical sector. Um, Whether it can benefit humans, definitely. I think there is a lot of ways that it can benefit human even within the walls of the operating theater. But doing the surgery itself or doing a procedure or um, anything itself, I don't think it will. Yeah. For the robots part, right? The only reason why that robot thing happened is because uh, you need you need an equipment with a higher precision uh, as compared to a human who can mix error.
Hmm.
And especially for the older surgeons, they have the experience, but their dexterity may not be there because of their age.
Hmm.
So with that um, uh, with their experience and what they know, what needs to be done, and the robot itself, yes, it helps. It really complements each other. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think it will replace if we are talking about the medical field, medical industry. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, for me, yeah, I understand your point of view, but the way how I see the future, I do think robots are coming for this,
Mm.
and I think the way how robots will take. Like, I saw one like meme saying like, "I want, for example, a robot that can do my dishes, not a robot that can like take my job or something like
Oh
that."
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you saw that,
Yes.
but
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't think the robots are going to do our dishes. They might do, but I
Okay.
think big companies they are going to look at the high paid job because at the end of the day they want to save money. So they're going to look for so it might differ. So if, let's say, if in certain profession, okay, you have one CEO, let's say, taking 1 million, and then you have, but you have 100,000 worker taking even 1,000. So 100,000 worker taking $1,000, in the net they are a higher cost than the CEO who's taking 1 million. So if I'm going to build a robot or an AI to replace one of them,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to replace the worker, right?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
it's going to save a lot for the company,
Uh-huh.
even their salary is low. But in other profession or in other industry, so if that doctor, he is the biggest cost,
Mm.
then they're going to build a robot to replace the doctor, maybe not the nurse. If
Mm.
they will see which one is the biggest cost. That's why it's not like about what we lie. We want a robot that do our dishes, because at the end of the day, who's going to pay? For example, if the robot cost, let's say, 100K, are you
Mm.
going to buy to do your dishes, or are you going to buy a robot like do surgery? No, it's better to buy it. um, so even from business point, so because of precision, I think the robots might will beat human in precision, in
Yeah.
maybe less errors. But I do think that human connection, like maybe talking to the doctor before I go to surgery, maybe the nurse, because I've been certain thing. I didn't do any major surgery or anything like that,
Mm.
but sometimes some nurse might, let's say, if we share same backgrounds, and he might say a prayer for me or dua that make me comfortable.
Yeah.
But a robot will not. Even if we program the robot to do that, it's not going to feel the same,
Mm.
right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think there's pros and cons.
Mm.
So it depends on how we approach it. Like there might be a hospital that say they might sell their service at a higher price because we are like a human, 100% human, like
Uh-huh. Mm.
human treatment, while the cheaper version, where the robotic version is the cheaper version.
Mm.
Maybe it will be the other way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing, I mean, after you have shared, maybe the only thing that I can think of in terms of replacing doctors themselves, uh, general practitioners,
General
those in the
practitioner.
normal clinics. Yeah,
Mm.
because it's like ChatGPT, you know, like I tell the doctor, okay, I have this, and then they will say, okay, I think you have this, you take this. If this doesn't work out for you, come back in 2, 3 days.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty binary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I Yeah, so maybe that one can really be replaced.
yeah, yeah. Also,
Yeah.
the one where they like, I don't know what they call that one. The one who check the X-ray or
Mm.
the
Radiographer.
MRI. Yeah,
Yeah.
the now AI is like more accurate than the human one.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I saw last, I think towards the end of last year. They mentioned that there was an article I read that this person, um, nobody told this person that they actually saw benign growth within the X-ray itself until they uploaded that particular image on ChatGPT.
Mm,
And then ChatGPT was the one that says that oh, there is actually this benign growth. So
mm,
something must be done to prevent that uh, from from spreading. So yeah, their medical professionals did not capture that, but AI managed to capture that. So maybe radiographers will be the first few to actually be replaced. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even in podcast, did you see that Google has
Oh
that
yes.
tool? You can give it a topic, it can create a podcast. Even now, you can participate. So they are talking, and
Yeah.
you can say, "Oh, excuse me, I have a question," and you can be the third person asking question to
Yeah.
the two talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, while I myself has a podcast, and of course, I don't want that to happen. Ultimately, for me myself, I know the purpose of why I'm doing the podcast.
Mm.
Really for me to grow my connections and really learn from business leaders. But if you just want to start a podcast out of maybe the fun of it, yes, then you can be replaced. But otherwise, if you have a sole purpose or sole reason, then I think it's fine to be able to just fit that purpose of yours.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So AI is scary. Like even
it is
now
really.
to education, which is another topic. I don't think we have enough time to talk about
Yeah,
it, but I think it's also challenging the education system,
mhm,
and going back to the stressful part of about the education system. I think AI might change that. Like, I don't know, maybe our kids, the way they will go to university and how things they maybe they have to memorize less and have to study less and use
yeah,
AI as a one of their tool to do
yeah,
things. Or I don't know, some people say AI will do everything and we will just sit doing nothing.
yeah.
But
So
then uh,
to me, I feel the best way for our kids is to really train them to be prompt engineers.
prompt engineers.
Yeah. So at least it's not really to be doing that as a career, but at least they will know how to actually prompt the AI for their own benefit.
Mm. But
Yeah.
there is another argument to this side, because
Oh,
I think AI getting so good that you
yeah,
don't need to do prompt engineering in the future, or at least you can see it now,
yeah,
because it's going to be so smart
yeah.
that in natural language it will know what you want, and if it doesn't understand, it might start asking you follow-up question to clarify few things and then get it. So
Mhm,
right now, yes, we you need to improve your prompts. And I did notice, like, compare you just I want this to writing a precise prompt, but it make a huge difference in the result. But I think eventually AI will get so smart that you don't need to even you don't need to prompt it. Like now they're talking
mhm,
about the concept of AI agents. So you
mhm,
have an AI agent, let's say about traveling. So you have
mhm,
an AI agent know everything about you, is working
yeah,
24/7 to find you the best package, the cheapest hotel, the best route, or and creating your attorney and adjusting it depending on the weather. So without you asking, so every maybe
yeah,
while tell you, you have a holiday. I checked the calendar. You
yeah,
have a holiday. You don't have these days. You have 2 days left in your leaves. Why don't you take leave 2 leaves here? And I already created this holiday
itinerary.
for you, and go. You don't need to ask it like, I'm
Yeah,
thinking to do this, or it's already working for you. So it might be a service in Google. So it know your calendar, know your emails, it know everything
mm,
about you, and it will suggest you. Maybe it know about your health, or it will see your cortisol level is high. You need a vacation, and I did create this program for you. So
okay, yeah,
yeah, okay, okay. I think we've been almost 2 hours. The time just passed
yeah, yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really great talking to you. I'm very excited, and thank you very much for being the first guest. Uh,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, yeah, I'm very happy for that. Thank you, Amir, and we hope to see you in another episode maybe.
Yes, yes, definitely.
All right, take care. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.